So, conditional probability is the probability one event has occurred given another event has occurred. So when you know information, that helps your probability, that increases your probability. So it's like when you know some information, it gives you better chances. So the probability of event A given the event B has already occurred is expressed as probability of A given B. So this little symbol right here, that little line right there, means given, okay? Now, when you see this on a test, used to when we used to give a state exam or in the future if we have a state exam, these rows right here, or the column and the row here, you don't usually see these, okay? I included them in our notes to help us out. And you always want to add these. So a lot of times you're not going to see these, but what you want to do is you want to add your own total columns because you have to have these in order to calculate conditional probability. So once again, you're not going to see these when you see a table on a test, on any kind of test or whatever. You're not going to see that total column. I have provided them for you for our notes to make it easier, but you have to have totals to calculate conditional probability. So let's go ahead and fill in our total columns. So if we add up going across the 106, 30, 70, and 4, that's going to give us, whoops, forgot to change my pen here. That's going to give us 210. Going across our 11th or 12th graders, that's going to give us 290. Our grand total is 500. Our bus riders are going to be 147. Our walkers are going to be 88. Car riders are 254. Oops, I don't know what happened there. And other is going to be 11. And, of course, going across there will also end up being 500. Okay, so our first question is, what is the probability the student walked to school? So just walk to school. You go to that column, and we are just looking at the fact that they walked to school. So that's going to be 88 out of the grand total of 500. And that's going to reduce to 22 out of 125. Okay? So that one's pretty simple to start off with. All right, next one, the probability that they're a 9th or a 10th grader. So you look at the grand total, that the probability that they are a 9th or a 10th grader. So that's going to be right here, 210 out of the grand total of 500. So that grand total of 500. And we reduce that fraction, so that's going to be 21 out of 50. Okay, so these are pretty easy to start off with. So now we get into some that involve a little more work. The probability that they rode the bus or 11th or 12th grader. Okay, so the probability that they rode the bus, so let me erase this. They rode the bus, so that's 147, or 11th or 12th grader. So that's the 290. So we need to add those together. Anytime you see or, you add, okay? Now, notice here there is an overlap. So this row and column overlap with the 41. So we need to subtract that because that's being added in there twice, okay, because there's an overlap. So anytime you have an or, you need to subtract the overlap. Okay, so 147 plus 290 minus 41 is going to be 396 over 500, and then we reduce that fraction, which is going to be 99 over 125. Okay. All right. Now, we get into the given stuff. Probability that they're an 11th or 12th grader given that they are a car rider. Whatever the given is, that is your bottom number because we're getting a little more specific. It's not going to be over the grand total anymore. So given that they are a car rider, it's kind of like we're looking in this column right here. Okay? So our bottom number is 254, and the 11th or 12th grader that's the number that goes on top. So 184 over 254, and now we reduce that fraction. So that's going to be 92 over 127. Okay. All right, the next one is very similar. Okay, so let me erase this. All right, let me put our 254 back in there. This is 254. Okay, so they walked given they are a 9th or 10th grader. Okay, so that's the bottom number, 9th or 10th grader. This is the bottom number, but I'm like focusing on this row, but that 210 is our bottom number. And the walker, that's your top number. And now I reduce that fraction, which reduces to 1/7. Okay, now the next one here, we have to fill in our own table, and sometimes that's what happens. So we got to fill in our own table on this one. Okay, so the manager of an ice cream shop is curious as to which customers are buying ice cream flavors of ice cream. He decides to track whether the customer is an adult or a child, and whether they order vanilla ice cream or chocolate. He finds of his 224 customers in 1 week. So the 224 is your total. 146 ordered chocolate. So 146 are going to order chocolate. So there's your total for chocolate. He also finds that 52 of his 93 adult customers, so 93, he has 93 adult customers, and 52 of those ordered vanilla. Okay, so here's the totals that we have so far. This is what our table gives us. We have to fill in the rest ourselves. So basically we just use addition and subtraction to fill in the rest. Okay, so for example, if we do 93 minus 52, that gives us 41 for chocolate. I can get my vanilla total by doing 224 minus 146 to get 78. I can fill in my chocolate column by doing 146 minus 41 to give us 105. Now you have to be super careful here, because if you mess up any of these numbers, it's going to, mess up your calculations when you start to answer these questions. I can do over here my total column, 224 minus 93 to give me 131. And then my last little slot over here, 78 minus 52, is going to give me 26. Okay, so now I'm ready to answer my questions. So, probability that we get vanilla given that we are adults. So remember, adult, I go to my adult here, 78 is going to be my bottom number. And then the vanilla, the 52, is what goes on top. And that fraction doesn't reduce. So that's my final answer for this one. All right. Now, for child, given that we are chocolate, so I go to my chocolate column. Oh, wait, I just did that one backwards. Whoops, let me back up here. I looked at the wrong column. So let me back up here. So that was a 52. That was a 26. Okay, sorry. So adult, I should have been looking out here at 93. Bottom number's a 93. And vanilla, 52, should have been on top. Okay, so there we go. Got that one fixed. Okay, so given that we're a chocolate, so now I'm looking at the chocolate column, which means that my bottom number is 146. And then the child, I look at the child where it intersects the 105, will be on top for that one. Okay. All right, so last one. A survey asked students which types of music they listen to. Out of 200 students, 75 indicated pop music and 45 indicated country music, with 22 of these indicating they listen to both. Use a Venn diagram to find the probability that a randomly selected student listens to pop music given they listen to country. So it wants us to draw a Venn diagram. So a Venn diagram, remember, is where you've got the two circles that overlap. So we have pop and we have country. Okay, so it says 22 indicate that they listen to both, okay? So 22 is where they listen to both, so I can definitely put that in the middle. Now, you got to be careful here. You can't just put 45 in the country, or sorry, 45 in the country and 75 in the pop, because you've got the 22 in the overlap. So for the pop, what we know is we know that 22 plus something equals 75, okay? And so that number, if you just, subtract 22 from 75, that is 53. So that means 53 goes in here, because 53 plus 22 is 75 total. That gives us our 75 for pop music. 75 total for pop music with the 22 overlap, okay? So that's where the 53 comes from for here. We do the same thing to figure out for country, okay? Because we're doing, you got to consider the overlap. So we're going to do the same setup for country to kind of figure that out. So we know that 22 for the overlap plus something equals the 45. Okay, so what plus, 22 equals 45? Well, that's 23. So that means 23 goes in here. Okay? All right. So another thing we also want to consider, we've got a total of 200 students. Well, if I add up 53 plus 22 plus 23, that equals 98. Okay, so there's a total of 98 students accounted for within my circles. Well, I got to get a total of 200. So that means 102 students are on the outside of my circles. They may not like pop or country. They may like rock, alternative, rap, something else altogether. So 102 is going to go on the outside. Okay, so now let's figure out our answer to our problem. Find the probability a randomly selected student listens to pop music given they listen to country. So given that they listen to country, so that's going to be out of 45. And they listen to pop, so that's going to be the 22. So 22 out of 45. And so just make sure you pay attention whether it wants a fraction or it wants a percentage or a decimal. So being it doesn't specify, we'll just leave it as a fraction.